I spend a lot of time talking about how to build applications on Microsoft Teams. In this video, I want to talk about why. Why build applications on Microsoft Teams? It really comes down to thinking about what's next and what's happening in the world. This is a question you should be asking yourself all the time. What's next for the world and technology? What's next for communication? And what's next for me? Knowing what's next is really important. If you don't work out what's next, someone else will, and they will overtake you. Everything is reducing down to data. Think about cloud storage, think about cloud processing. It allows us to work with so much data so quickly in ways that we've never been able to before. Entire kind of ecosystems are being reduced into data. Think about driving cars, for example. That whole world of driving is just becoming data. It's reducing down to just decisions made in data. Companies that harness the right data with technologies such as AI are going to have an almost unfair quote over the competition. Look at this quote. If you corner the market in data, you probably have more wealth advantages than if you corner the market in gold or oil. Data is the real place where the money is. Who do you think said that quote if I asked you? You might have said maybe Mark Zuckerberg or Bill Gates. No. Justin Welby, he's the Archbishop of Canterbury. Now, I'm using this quote to kind of illustrate a point. If you think what I'm talking about is way out in the future, I think you need to think again. If the Archbishop of Canterbury is talking about this, it's very real and it's here. So why do you care? Well, just like oil, data is not valuable by itself. It needs to be processed and it needs to be consumed. People need ways to communicate with their data. How we communicate with our data is changing and it's evolving. It's going to be one of the most disruptive channels and changes in our industry. So what's this all got to do with you? And why do you care right now? Well, I want to show you something. Technology moves in 10-year cycles, or so it seems. This is not my idea. I've stolen this from James Whittaker. And if you kind of look at the big technological leaps of the past few decades, well, Microsoft came to prominence in the 80s, but since then, they've really kind of missed out or been behind in lots of the big technology leaps. So things like internet and search and mobile. And Microsoft didn't want to be behind on the next leap. They wanted to be part of the next technology leap and a real part of it and defining and changing it. In 2014, Microsoft announced a new CEO, Satya Nadella, and since then, in that period of time, we've witnessed one of the greatest corporate turnaround inside Microsoft. Did you notice that? Were you paying attention? Remember what I said about things changing and being on top of what's next? The cloud is killing the web. Who runs their own web server from under their desk anymore? Who runs their web server at home? No one. Millions of people were 10 years ago, but the cloud has changed all of that. It's meant that the data is now all in one place, and that's interesting because harnessing it en masse in aggregation is now so much easier than it was before, and it means that things like AI really kind of make so much more sense than before. So Microsoft are taking advantage of this. They're changing how the company works. They're becoming a platform company. Look at this quote by Nadella in 2018. We're focused on two massive platform opportunities, one being Microsoft Azure, the other Microsoft 365. So platforms. So why do you care about platforms? What am I going on about platforms? Well, data becoming really important, and platforms. Data and platforms. Data and platforms. This is my Steve Jobs moment. Are you getting it yet? Data and platforms. Microsoft Teams is the platform for data. Think about it. Teams is where your users go. It's where they go to access the data that they need. That's why Microsoft are laser focused on bringing so much information to users in Teams, because it enables them to get work done by having data in the place where they're communicating. It's the platform. Teams is the platform. And in order for Microsoft to enable users to have so much data and have the data they need inside Teams, Microsoft need to make good developer tools available to developers to enable them to bring their applications into Teams. And that's exactly what they're doing. So this is the why. This is the why you write applications on Teams, because that's where users are. It's where they need to be accessing their data, and it's where Microsoft are focused on making the best possible experience for users as well. Bots are the perfect entry point for this. Bots are the perfect way for users to interact with their data these days. Now, I can tell you still don't believe me, so let me give you a perfect example. Let's talk about the weather. I'm British, I like to talk about the weather. In the 1990s, cast your mind back, how would you go about finding out the weather? Well, if it was me, I'd go to a search engine. I'd go to Yahoo in the 90s, and I would search for London weather, and I'd get some pages, and eventually I'd get the right page I wanted to give me the weather in the 1990s. This is like a hunter-gatherer mode. This is me going out to the internet, trying to find the information I need and bringing it back every time, every day out hunting, finding the pieces of information that I need. And it's good, but it's a lot of work on my part. Let's go forward 10 years to the 2000s. How did I get the weather in the 2000s? Well, I had an app for that. Everybody had an app for that. And apps were better because the app knew the location I cared about. It knew how I wanted the weather presented, and it had all that ready for me. So apps were better than going out to the web. But apps were a different problem because now I had to look after these. I had to curate these apps, keep them updated. And so I wasn't a hunter-gatherer anymore. I was a shepherd of apps. Look, with my flock of apps that I had to look after and keep them updated and keep them happy. So let's go forward again. What do we do now? How do we interact now? Well, it's easy, right? Siri, do I need an umbrella? What's dress me? I'm too lazy to think. Like, just talk to, Siri or Amazon Echo and just ask what you want. These are bots. They're a natural extension to apps, but they don't require us to kind of think ahead of time about what we need or about which app to open. We just say what we want, and that whole bot ecosystem figures things out. It's not perfect at all, and it's still evolving. And a lot of the time when I say bots, actually we type with our bots. We don't talk to our bots, but that's a technological kind of stepping stone. We'll get over that. Eventually we'll just be talking to the walls. And we've really evolved from hunting and gathering through shepherding. This, where we are now, this is the McDonald's drive-through of data collection. Exactly what I want, when I want it, without me having to do any work. It's perfect. And so bots are becoming a really important way in which users interact with their data. And it completely makes sense. It makes sense as a way for users to get their data because users are already communicating with other users. They're doing chats with other people. Having a chat with some bot just to go and get some data or kick off a process, it makes perfect sense. And it's a really nice abstraction for developers. It's a common interface for developers to have with users via a bot interface, via a chat interface or a voice interface, out to legacy systems that were designed way before all this stuff was around. And in this model as well, it means that developers can bring users information into Microsoft Teams around Microsoft 365, legacy systems. They can perform actions, kick off process flows, and they can do all of that within Microsoft Teams because that whole bot ecosystem is well supported inside Microsoft Teams. But really, that's not the only way. Bots are not the only thing that you can do when we talk about Microsoft Teams development. There's lots and lots of other ways that you can surface data inside Microsoft Teams and that you can kind of interact with users. The Teams user interface is really extensible. There's lots and lots of different things that you can do and lots of different kind of approaches and different entry points and methodologies. And I talk about lots of those in the kind of how-to videos. But this is the why. Teams is the platform for data. It's how users interact with their data. And it's your job to help users be more productive, either by creating solutions that help them do that, by helping them get access to their data, or just by enabling them to access those solutions. So whether you're a developer or an IT pro, you need to understand this stuff. This isn't just for developers. This is not a video meant just for developers. This includes all of the low code, the no code. It includes IT admins who have to understand how to enable users to discover the right applications and have access to the right applications. But if you're interested, whether you're a developer or not, if you haven't already built a Microsoft Teams app, what's stopping you? There are so many examples out there. There's so many things that you could do for your organization, and there's so many tools to help you. This is a really exciting, evolving space to be in. By building applications around Microsoft Teams, you can create experiences that bring data to users where they're already collaborating and empower them to be more productive and achieve more. So I would say give it a go today. Try and build a Microsoft Teams app. I think you might be really surprised by what happens.